Hi, this is Andy Sietsema of Sietsema Cider, located in Ada, Michigan, soon to be, as well as Cedar Springs, Michigan, with our new tap room. And you are listening to Cider Chat.
Episode 145. Hello and welcome to Cider Chat. My name is Rhea Wincaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak to makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world. This week, we're sitting down for some food and cider with Andy Sietsema. He is based in Michigan, and we're going to be finding a little bit about what he's up to and some special ciders that he is always making. There's going to be more with Andy coming right up, but first, a bit of news out and about in Ciderville. I always like to do a tip of the glass to all the folks who are patrons of this here podcast via Cider Chat's Patreon page, and there is a group of commercial cider makers on that list too. First off, I always like to thank a current cider who now has their tap room open in Fishtown, Philadelphia. They make a lot of different modern ciders, and they also have barrel aging too. So if you are in that area, check out Current Cider. Who wouldn't want to go to Fishtown? Being a big fan of fish and fishing and like, I just love the idea of a place to visit called Fishtown. There is also Iron Bark Cider Works out in Claremont, California. That is also a modern cidery. Claremont is based to the east of Los Angeles, not too far, so it's an easy little buzz out there to meet some really nice people. A lovely, large tasting room with indoor and outdoor seating. And then if you're like popping over to the UK, which I hope you do. In fact, you want to start thinking about going with me to the UK. I'm going to be planning a cider tour there. You should stop in and see Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company. These folks just put up the Ross Cider Fest recently, the first weekend, it was at August 31st, and that kind of Labor Day weekend for us here in the U.S. Well, they were partying and drinking cider and having a lot of fun. You could just feel, sometimes when you taste cider, you could feel like goodness in it. And that is so true with all the folks who are part of being integral to this Patreon campaign that I really try to use to help support this podcast. So check out that company, Ross on Wye. I'll never forget the first cider I had from them. Then there's also Little Pomona. That is Susanna Forbes and James Forbes. They have Little Pomona, and I had them also on the podcast. So they are patrons of Cider Chat too, which is really nice. And guess what? To really excite you about what's happening over in the UK, Susanna Forbes, that I was just talking about, who's also known as Drink Britain on Twitter, she just had a book published, and it's called The Cider Insider. That's a little mouthful there. It's kind of like ringing. The Cider Insider. And it profiles 100 of the world's best craft ciders and their creators. So there is a pre-order place that you could do that. I'm going to put the link in the show notes for that. It's not yet available from what I understand in the U.S., but she's such a wonderful writer, a great person, a real champion for all the folks that are working so hard to create craft libations. So let's support Susanna and order this book today and help her elevate cider also around the world. If we continue a little bit to the east in Europe, we look at the country of Luxembourg, where Ramborn Cider Company is located. And this is just an amazing story of Ramborn. If you haven't heard it, you have to go to the episode and listen to their story. I recorded that with Carlos Hein, who was really the founder of Ramborn Cider Company. It was a cider dinner that we had back a while ago at CiderCon. So you could just Google Ramborn Cider Chat and you'll find that. But if you don't know the story, here's a snapshot. this is the only cidery in the entire country, and they are really helping, well, I'd save the apple trees and the pear trees. They make perry, they make cider. And they're kind of using kind of the English approach to cider making. So you could kind of taste that Somerset, that Herefordshire, that West Country in all their ciders. Great people there, and they are also part of the Cider Going Up campaign. And then if we swing back to the U.S., there's John Edwards, who isn't necessarily a commercial cider maker, but he's part of the Cider Going Up campaign, and he has a company called Process and Analytical NMR Services. NMR is a certain kind of analytical, I don't know, it's just so scientific, it kind of overwhelms me, but it really allows people to analyze liquids in terms of, for a cider maker, and discover what components are in there and how to manage that, what the yeast profiles are, what's going on in your cider. And he did a workshop at CiderCon called Chemical Fingerprints, and we have that entire episode recorded and videotaped, so you could go to the Cider Chat YouTube channel. So those are some of the people that are part of the Cider Going Up campaign. Then there's all these wonderful patrons in general. And wouldn't you know, when last week's episode went live, I got a email in that there was a new patron, and the amount that this person is committing to sending each month is $3.27. Now, does that sound familiar? If you remember, if you're a regular listener, you remember me saying that someone donated not $3, but $3.27, which I just love. And there's a little reason behind that, because this is the same person. His name is Joe, and he is in Portugal. He's actually an American who's in Portugal, and he's just hot on the trail for cider because he now is gluten intolerant. So he was a professional brewer, and now all he could do is drink cider, and he's just going full steam ahead. He's going to go to the International Hall of Gala Affairs. That's the annual cider fest that takes place in Asturias that I had gone to back in 2016. So he's going to be there this year. That's just like in 2 weekends. It's maybe 2 or 3 weekends, the tail end of September. And he kind of wrote the following to me. It's so great. We're corresponding back and forth. And he says, I read the book about how the Belgians brew their lambics. He's reading Wild Brews, Beer Beyond the Influence of Brewer's Yeast by Jeff Sparrow. It is totally fascinating how they recruit but limit the growth of all the bacteria. The process is over 3 years long. That's true. I mean, what they're doing in Belgium is crazy. All the off flavors come and go, being transformed by the next organism to rise to ascendancy. There are graphs showing the pH, the specific gravity, etc., etc. All the graphs showing the population activity over time, the lactobacillus, the wild yeast, the Brettanomyces, etc. He writes, I'm a new cider guy, formerly a pro brewer before celiac. I read about what my TA, pH, and SO2 levels need to be. So if you're somebody like Joe, this probably sounds really familiar to you. He says that this book gave him a different perspective, encouraging me to allow the terroir express itself. Most defects can apparently be limited. I think he's talking about wild ferment there. And when they occur, they are ingredients for a different process down the line. So he is experimenting, he's foraging apples, and just a perfect person to be involved in the cider community. So thank you so much, Joe, for becoming a patron and for that 27 cents extra. It really helps, actually, because, that's what they kind of take away because, it's a website that has to be paid to for doing a service for content providers like me. So thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. Best luck, and keep us posted, and have a ton of fun in Asturias. At the end of the month, I am going to be in Normandy, France on the Totally Cider Tour with a group of folks touring about and tasting all that we can in Normandy, France. And we added a special piece to this trip that we weren't really telling folks, but we have the time to do it. We're going to be visiting one of the largest American cemeteries there for the soldiers that died during the battles in Normandy during World War II, and that is the St. James Cemetery. It's going to be both somber and inspiring, and I'm really thrilled that we could share this, because you go to Normandy and you taste the cider and you eat the cheese and you're in the landscape and you're in an environment that people are so welcoming to someone like myself from the United States. I mean, they're welcoming to everybody, no doubt. I don't believe that stuff that people say about the French. These are welcoming people. But there's a certain feeling for the allies that were there to really help them rise up out of, the scene of fascism that was taking over at that time. And so it's going to be a great honor to be able to go there. A lot of the graves at this cemetery are adopted by local French families and maintained. So that is going to be really thrilling. We'll be doing that right after seeing Mount St. Michel and then having dinner that night in a restaurant that overlooks Mount St. Michel and watching the sun go down. Yes, I am thrilled. And speaking of tours, I have another tour coming right up November 1st. It is a Thursday, but I think this really works for people coming to Cider Days, whether you are local to Massachusetts or coming from worldwide Ciderville land. This tour is going up to New Hampshire and Vermont. It's going to stop at Farnham Hill, at Eden, at Snow. Then we're going to stop at Fable Farm Fermatory. Now, when I put out last week's episode, I did not have this cider maker listed, but Fable Farm is a wild ferment cidery. They have a cider cellar we're going to be in, and then we're going to have like our food, our buffet food upstairs, and downstairs there's a hearth where the cellar is. And we have tin hat maker Teddy Weber coming to join us. And we also have Sebastian Lusader of Flag Hill Farm, which is also a Vermont cidery. I had Sebastian on this podcast. It's an amazing story. It's one of the oldest cideries in the U.S. You have an opportunity to meet somebody who is making cider fully off the grid. They have no electricity at all that goes to their mountaintop home and cidery, which is both a cidery and a distillery, and it's all organic, certified organic. So it's a great opportunity to meet somebody who's been making cider for over 20 years and some delightful ciders too. So that's happening. Just go to the Totally Cider page at ciderchat.com. Make your reservations now. Trying to get all the reservations in by October 15th, because I do expect this to sell out, because it is just a phenomenal opportunity to spend a day traveling up from Greenfield, Massachusetts, up into New Hampshire and Vermont, and returning back to Greenfield. Again, check it out at the Totally Cider page at ciderchat.com. We've come to that moment in the podcast where we want to head right to our main conversation. This was pre-recorded while I was out in Grand Rapids, Michigan, attending GlintCap. Now, you're going to hear a couple mentions of different people during this conversation, so let me just kind of catch you up and give you a little bit of the landscape. This was recorded on Thursday evening. It was at a restaurant called Sovengard, which is a lovely farm-to-table restaurant. We were in the downstairs area, and it's a little bit of noisy, so you're going to have to bear with that. But if you ever get out there, you go out in the back, and there's music playing, so that's why I couldn't record outside, because there was music. There's copyright stuff on that. But there's also bocce ball and a really cool hang scene. I love this place, and this is what Andy Sietsema of Sietsema Orchards chose for us to meet up at and record this conversation. So we sat down and did just that. And as we were talking, we were mentioning different people. So you're going to hear us refer to Beck, and we're talking about Mike Beck of Uncle John's Hard Cider. That's also Michigan Cidery. Then Nikki, and that's Nikki Rothwell of Tandem Cider. She and her husband Dan Young are Tandem based up in northern Michigan. And then you also might hear Diane Flint. She is well known for her Foggy Ridge cider, and that's in Virginia. Actually, no longer producing cider, but full in on cider apples. So those are some of the people. Also Tom Burford, who's an absolutely famous apple expert based in Virginia. So, sometimes when you're sitting down and having cider, you're kind of going for slang and you're kind of forgetting that you're talking to a worldwide audience. But that's it in a snapshot. So let's grab a glass and join this chat with Annie Sietsema of Sietsema Orchards. And he's opening a new tap room in Cedar Springs, Michigan, just north outside of Grand Rapids. We'll talk briefly about that. But mainly, this is about food and cider and good conversation. So let's raise that glass and join this chat.
Oldest of four, always grew up on the orchard, working summers, fourth, third grade, if I wanted to go play with my buddies, I had to go work X amount of hours every day before I could go off in the summer and do anything.
Right.
So, I went to college, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but growing apples and working on a farm was always
what you did,
it's
right?
in your in your bloodline. So with that said, we kind of set out to kind of recreate, and the buying pattern shifted too, and then for cider, not cider, we didn't do hard cider back then. We just sweet cider, apples, and donuts.
Not commercially though. Not commercially, but did you do it even like on the side, like your
hard cider?
Yeah.
No, my dad always tinkered around with stuff in the basement, and
that's what I'm asking.
And honestly, it wasn't that good, and he'll admit it as well.
Okay. So
any snacks right now?
I think Mike. Is it Mike?
Rick? Michael?
No, not Rick.
Michael was going to just surprise it.
Okay,
so
sounds
he's got
good.
some stuff. Thank you. Fast forward to where we are now in fourth generation orchard. Our big thing was, and my dad's big thing is about 15, 20 years ago, he started playing around with a lot of the heirloom apples.
15, 20 years ago. Good timing. Why did he think of that?
He likes apples. And he likes to, he started reading up on cider and just apples in general.
Wow.
So even back at the old place, when we transplanted, we had some ashmeads, we had golden russets trees that we took and transplanted. So he was just started there, and this is my dad's forte. I want to say 250 different kinds of apples. But a lot of those are 1, 2, 3 trees. We're seeing if they grow well in the region.
Right.
A lot of them do not grow well. But we have identified, the Ashmeads grow well. Spitzenbergs grow well. They don't like the heat here in Michigan. But they grow pretty well. So we identified about 7 to 10. And we're relatively small when it comes to orchard.
Well, most people listening are going to say, okay, man, you're not, in the general scheme of things that a lot of cider makers like, that's pretty good. Maybe, generally speaking, in terms of the Michigan apple growers that are like, 800 acres.
Yeah. We technically are only on like 12 or 15 acres.
That's a beautiful thing. A lot of people would be like, if you have good apples on 12 or 50 acres.
Yeah.
I want to back up here a little bit about, it sounds like your dad is like on the orchard piece and you're the cider maker. Is that true?
Correct, yeah.
So do you know when he started kind of, bringing in some of these varieties and as he's playing with it, are you doing a lot of, top working your trees or you're planting?
No, he does a lot of rootstock grafting.
Okay.
So we were one of the first ones I know with Harrison's in the ground in Michigan. So when Mr. Burford came up here to the expo
from Virginia, Tom Burford, nice.
He was, we were all into it, and a lot of these farmers were sitting there writing it down. Harrison. I looked up at Vintage Virginia. Said, well, they have X amount of Harrisons, said, and I ordered them all out like
No
that.
kidding. And what inspired you to do that? Just what he was saying about
What
the
Mr.
Harrison?
Burford,
Wow.
Mr. Burford was saying.
How did you connect with him, and why was he out
Well,
here?
he was up here at the expo, the big expo here in Grand Rapids. So we do in the expo every December is the big horticulture expo.
Okay.
And they brought him in. I think Mike Beck brought him in, and maybe Nikki from Tandem.
So this is kind of recent then that would have happened in the general scheme of things.
That was probably
you know?
about 7 years ago
Yeah.
or so. And we tried it, but they told us, and Diane Flynn down at Foggy Ridge too. Harrisons are a pain in the butt to grow. They are actually a true semi-annual bearing tree. And they're hard to grow, and they grow harder than Northern Spy. But they do, when you do get the fruit off, but yet per bushel, the Harrisons are a smaller apple, but they do yield 30% more juice per bushel, but they're true semi-annual. So
Finicky,
stuff like that,
finicky. Yeah.
but that is, the little bit of juice that we do get off of them is amazing, and I'll just blend it in with, you'll have some of this in
Sweet.
later
Wow.
here.
Nice.
We blend it in, all of our heirloom stuff we blend in, so.
So how are you finding, overall, was it worthwhile putting those Harrisons in when you said you took this kind of whim? Would you have done it differently?
No, I mean, right now we're going through a little bit of a family business. We're sitting there looking at the orchard. Does it make, how can we make money? Does it make money? Are we breaking even? What is the money maker? Obviously, hard cider is the money maker.
It's a money maker, good.
We are kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So we're looking at, like I said in the intro, to Cedar, a different location,
Cedar
a
Springs,
tap room
yeah.
that's open year-round. We do very well September through right up until November or
Right.
Thanksgiving.
Right.
After that, we're all heavily based on distribution, which distribution is that's a whole nother nutshell.
There you go. So we're going to probably jump around here.
Yeah. Sorry.
But no. This is good. So I want to just let the folks out there in Ciderville who are listening along and give you like a little snapshot of what's going on here. Annie and I are sitting down, and he's pointing over this like beautiful bottle that I know will have a fun cider drink. He's poured me a cider, which is
traditional dry.
Yeah. I love that it says love at first sip. It's a 16-ounce can.
Yeah.
Right across there, 6.9%.
Yeah.
And this is your traditional, exactly what I would like to be served first. I appreciate you doing that. It's really clean cider.
We started out 5 years ago. I wanted to do the big, nice, sexy 750 ml bottles with letterpress labels. Quickly realized that did not sell. And we switched to cans, which was very good. But I've always been more of a traditionalist. A lot of my stuff, even my slightly sweet, which we'll have next year, only has about 1.5% residual sugar added back to it. So what's really good to see is the cider consumer now is starting to want dry.
Right.
We had more people this past fall come in to the orchard say, I don't like hard cider. And we're like, well, why not? It's like, it's too sweet. And we're like, well, wait a minute. So
that's awesome. That's awesome to hear, isn't it? I mean, you just saw that happen, right? Mm-hmm. And you've been in business for how long selling cider?
Yeah, 5 years,
5 years.
Yeah,
so in that little span of time, and now that you're going to open this new tasting room and everything in Cedar Springs, which is just about 23 miles north of here, Grand Rapids, everything's going to change again because you're going to keep on educating people.
It's good to see, like, the traditional dry in Detroit. That's the #1 selling SKU and the biggest pull-through.
In Detroit. Go Detroit.
For me, yeah.
Wow.
Detroit, there's a lot of exciting things happening.
Yeah, it's a pretty. The city's pulling themselves up from their like bootstraps, aren't they?
They are. They're.
Thank goodness.
Really cool what's going on in Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, they got Detroit Metro is 4.7 million people. So
That's a lot of potential cider drinkers
it's
there.
an untapped market really right now.
So folks can get this in Detroit.
Yeah.
I know a number of different.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes some food. What do we have here?
We've got some really beautiful spring Michigan asparagus. Just started getting that in from our local farms. That's got a sunny egg on there, some pickled ramps.
Very European
Also,
there with the
yeah.
sunny egg, yeah.
Yeah, ramps are wild foraged. You got some preserved lemon puree on there, and some brown butter breadcrumbs. And then our trout spread, which is white fish and a mixture of all sorts of other, really nice rich ingredients. Homemade sourdough crackers, a beet pickled egg. Our house pickles, which really change all the time based on what we're getting in from our local farms, and then some nice country mustard.
So I can tell that I have to catch up with Andy here. If I'm gonna, get to drink all these ciders, this guy knows how to drink cider like a good Michigonian. Andy and I started chowing down on all that fantastic food brought out by Rick, the owner of Sauvigard. And then we started talking about that glass bottle, a 750 ml, sitting on the table.
We call it Maggie's Reserve. Made from all of our heirloom apples. It's at 10.5%. This is this year's.
Whoa, right
it still needs to age a little bit, so when you taste it, you'll feel it's a little hot yet, I guess.
Okay.
But usually we just sell it out of the orchard and we release it. We ferment it, let it age, and just do its thing for about a year. And we release it every September 21st, except for some special occasions. So. It's named Maggie. I have 4 daughters. Maggie is my 5th daughter who died at birth.
That's beautiful.
And 21st was her birthday, and when everything happened. And we give a portion of that back to the local labor and delivery unit where all my daughters were born. And that's what they have on tap here tonight in the Maggie's Reserve.
No kidding, wow.
But I barrel aged it in local breweries, beer barrels.
Beer barrels.
Yeah, so we're in Beer City.
Beer barrels.
Wow.
Are we talking about oak beer barrels or just like?
No, we are.
We're talking about oak beer barrels.
So,
you don't hear about that too often, but
for example, the barrels that I had were a local person who does maple syrup and bourbon barrels, and then the brewery got them and they did their beer in them.
Yeah, right on.
And we did a barrel swap. The brewery and I did a barrel swap. So he took a couple of my bourbon barrels that I did some stuff in, and we swapped, and I swapped with his, and it's pretty. I think it's on tap outside by the bocce ball court.
Oh, great! Good. What a deal!
But this is just and that was all. Actually, this is this year, if you want to call it vintage. I know we're not allowed to use vintages.
I'll call it vintage because I kind of see it's vintage. We're in a conversation, so can we we give the names of your wife and your daughters? Is that cool by you? Because I always like to give a shout out to the family who supports you.
Everybody asks me. My wife she's an amazing, beautiful woman. I love her to death.
Yay.
Her name is Mandy or Amanda, so there's Andy and Mandy. So my oldest is Lane.
How old is Lane? She's going to be 12?
12, going on 22.
Of course.
Abby, and I hate she's 10. There's Molly, who is 8. And then Maggie would have been this past September 6. And then there's Samantha, we called Sam. She's 4.5. what I'm pouring for you now is my lemongrass. It's kind of, if I'm known for anything, it's kind of this. I know. I think this was either 2 or 3 years ago here at Glint Cap was one of the nominations up for best in show. I think I lost out by a couple points for it. So
wow. Hey, cheers to that.
Yeah. I wanted to do something different, but yet not do what everybody else does, and just talk to some people and came up with lemongrass. It goes great with gin too.
And I'm a big gin drinker. So yeah. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite spirits. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think all my spirits are my favorite spirits, but I do love gin.
Yeah, I'm very, if there's a staple of something that we're involved in, usually it's,
I mean, where'd you get that idea?
Like I said, I was just talking to some people, and I didn't want to do what everybody else does in cider. Like I said, I'm more of a traditionalist, but yet I do realize that you got to keep an equal balance of, commercially sell and then yet have, this. And I just was playing around with some stuff and lemongrass. So we use the same technique as dry hop, so next we'll have our dry hop cider, but it's the same technique as dry hopping in beer or
You're
in
just
cider.
infusing it in like a bag.
But with lemongrass.
Yeah.
Yep.
And did you do like different trials where you tried it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or hours, or how'd you figure that all out? How do you do that? How do you approach it as a cider maker?
It's trial and error for me because we are, it's really just me. I'm a one-man show. So what we do is we do a heavy concentrated batch. I have it down to, say we do a heavy concentrated batch of 60 gallons of lemongrass, but then I'll blend it in with 250 gallons, and then
that makes sense, yeah.
And I'll can and then I'll keg it. So, in my opinion, lately we've been too heavy on lemongrass, so I'm starting to cut back a little bit. This is actually, I just canned this 2 days ago. So
2 days ago, yeah. It's for the meal that we're having, the asparagus and the trout pate, it's like totally complements it.
Yeah, and it's a good thing with, everybody's like, what does cider go good with? I'm like, everything.
Everything.
But this, the lemongrass, you're eating sushi.
Oh, yeah.
Lemongrass with sushi.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of sushi places around town pick it up, and even a little bit in Chicago.
And that's a 6.9%. So all your cans are 6.9. Is that true?
Yeah. So we start everything starts as a base. I keep it simple right now. Like I said, I'm a one-man show, so everything I do starts as my traditional dry. A lot of like what other cideries do. And we'll either add, my slightly sweet, we'll add, 1.5% sugar to it, or then I'll dry hop it with the lemongrass, or then dry hop with actual hops. But then, the Maggie's Reserve is special, so that's totally different. So this is our hopped one. We use all Michigan hops.
What's the farm that you're getting that off of in Michigan?
We do use pure mint hops for the most part right now. They're friends of ours. We use Crystal and Cascade. When I first started out, I would use Citra and Amarillo, and Cascade and Centennial, but I'm adjusting what I use, so I'm still playing around with it. This almost tastes like a Riesling, honestly, but I really like it.
Yeah, but with that little hop bite, I like it too, because a lot of hop ciders will be really piney, a little oily, and I like hops, of course, but this is really smooth.
Yeah.
It's a delicate kind of hop, but it's still there.
Yeah,
Well
I used
done.
to be very hop forward, but almost too much. So I'm pulling back a little bit on it. I'm very happy with how this batch turned out.
So is the Cedar Springs, is that going to be a production facility?
It will have a quote-unquote production facility.
So you're not bringing...
So what I'm going to do right now, the plan is to still do everything in the Ada location, then just bring it up there and go bond to bond. It's kind of what a lot of legislation stuff is going on about. But I do have space to grow into there, and it's just going to take time.
So let's put it in perspective this way. What kind of size, fermentation, tanks are you bringing into the Cedar Springs?
Literally nothing. Because I'm going to do everything at my current location. I'm going to keg and blend and
Currently,
do everything
though,
there.
What are you 5 years from now?
Oh, 5 years from now up there?
Yeah.
Oh, I would expect to do everything up there, and it's hard for me at my level to project, but I don't even really want to.
I'm going to say it like this. 5 years from now, we're having this conversation, and going to be like, Rita, I'm bringing in more apples, and now I'm looking at that field over there I'm on a plan, and, because that...
Well, here's the thing. You and your audience may not want to hear it, but I farmed my whole life. Farming is hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think farming needs to be let to the guys who can do it and can do it at an economy of scale, and where us Michigan cider makers can still get good Michigan fruit at a good Michigan price. It's good to have the heirloom stuff, which is a very small portion of it. It's still you come into it's a whole nother discussion of price point and everything.
But you're making rock solid, ciders here on. You don't believe me? I'm looking.
I'm my hardest critic.
You are? Oh, well, I've had the privilege of drinking ciders in many, many locations, and you're not alone being your hardest critic. I mean, we could all say it about us.
It takes a lot to impress me with my stuff.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Well, I'll let you know. I mean, if I didn't like your cider, I wouldn't be talking.
Let me know.
I might be a little less. I like how sessionable it is. That's what I like. I like how it's not sweet.
No,
it's
like I said, none of my stuff is sweet.
None of it's sweet. And
we do some draft stuff too, because we do know we have to have.
We do a little bit of that.
We do a cherry. We do a blueberry.
Right.
We know that's what the average consumer wants.
I love how this hop cider, I could drink a lot of this. It's not making me have that gag reflex that some could be, because they're just you got to make it really hoppy. But do you find with your hop cider that it has a certain shelf life? That the hops, unlike in a beer where it's like the India Pale Ale where they put a lot of hops in it.
No, I mean, once you filter it and everything, we're finding we just reinvest in a lot of our filtration here lately, and it's we're finding it keeps pretty well, honestly. So it does. I will say it does differ because I'm still playing around with what hops to use here and there. Obviously, I started out using Citra and Amarillo. Yeah. Those are proprietary, so they're hard to get. So now I'm kind of shifted around.
Whatever the market has available. All right, so now we're trying the.
This is our Maggie's Reserve. This is this year's. I think it still needs to sit. You can tell it's still kind of hot.
So 2017, you made this.
Yeah, it's 2018 right now.
2018, okay. So let's look at that. I'm holding this up against a white wall. So it's a very light amber, that
Yeah.
kind of, not like a super gold, a very light gold color. That's right, Ciderville. Earlier we were talking about Maggie's Reserve, but now we are tasting it.
So this probably has 20 different, so it's got Ashmead, Spitzenberg, Harrison's, Dabinett, Golden Russet, Roxbury Russet, Newton Pippin, some of the, it's still a little, what I call hot. It needs to sit yet a little longer.
Yeah, like a cider like this, all those apples coming together.
Yep.
They want to commune a little bit longer.
There's a lot of acid in it, which is what I like. I like acid in cider, but it still needs to mellow for another 3 months before we bottle it. It was normally how we do it, and it's still, I literally just took it right out of the container today because actually my 2 other bottles I had just got entered in Glint Cap, so
good luck.
I wanted to bring those, but I only had 2 bottles left.
Well,
so but this of last year, so 2016. So but this is this year. So
yeah, you know what? When I drink a cider like this, and what you're saying about aging and things like that, like I think that's good for Ciderville, like listeners to know, consumers out there in the world, that cider does age, and that it's kind of like approach it like that cab or that Montepulciano, like get it, hold on to it, and then see how it develops. That's the best part of cider making, is you open that bottle a year later and you're like, holy smokes, like
especially with something like this with that much acidity,
it's gonna really hold well.
So we have stuff. I've been doing this will be my 4th year, so we've had, like I said, we named it after our daughter, so I have bottles from 3 years. We're kind of holding over to see how, on special occasion. Maybe once my other 4 daughters get married, maybe we'll pop them open.
That's a lot of girls to have in your life, huh?
That's why I'm in the booze industry. It's funny. A lot of us cider makers all have girls. Paul Vanderhyde has 3 girls from Vandermill. Mike Beck has all girls. Dan Young has all girls. I wasn't sure what it was.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, nothing wrong with that, Lovely beings, I suppose you're working a farm. It'd be good to have a big burly guy, kind of coming up the storm. But they're not teenagers yet, are they?
With my shotgun, I'll have a teenager next year.
Oh my goodness! Who knows what he'll be making next year?
What's hilarious and what's great is it was like a year ago, my 5-year-old, it's not legal, but she would sit there at the bar at the orchard. It's like, my dad, we go by colors. So, the yellow label is traditional dry, red label slightly sweet. She'll go, my dad's yellow labels are dry, red label is slightly sweet.
Yeah, I'm doing great.
And she can read them all off, and she's 5 years old. I'm just like, oh boy, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
I'm kind of surprised because, we're talking about Dan Young at the People's Pint. We when I was bartending there, would be kids sitting up at the bar.
Yeah.
I don't think we thought it was illegal. I don't know. Is it actually? I don't think it is.
But mine was sitting behind the bar.
Oh, well, she's not kicking it back. That's the next generation. That is entrepreneurial spirit in a family farm. That's how I see it. It really is. Anybody who doesn't get it should be out working in the apple orchard for a day and then figure it out from there. To recap, the 4 canned ciders that we had over dinner that evening were the traditional dry, the slightly sweet, the hop cider, and lemongrass. Each of those are all 6.9%. And then we also had Maggie's Reserved, released each year on September 21st in tribute to their daughter Maggie, who was lost at childbirth. That cider, I have to say, was outstanding. At Sauvegar's that night, they were having it on draft, and I could still taste it. It is that memorable. So I do hope you get a chance to try Maggie's Reserve. This podcast is being released in September, and that means that coming up, it will be going out, hopefully, to you. A big tip of the hat to the whole family and to the upcoming opening of the Cedar Springs taproom with Sietsema Orchard Ciders. Best of luck to you all, and keep us posted. This past August, we lost a cider great unexpectedly, and that was Jérôme Dupont. If you listen to episode 143 with Mark Skinner from Windswept Orchards, I did a tribute to Jérôme. And I've been kind of contemplating, well, how do I share this? And the fact that coming up, we're going to be over in Normandy, France, going to Domaine Dupont. I thought it to be fitting to see if we could do a toast while there. And I have been in touch with Jérôme's father, Monsieur Dupont. Etienne Dupont is his name. And we are indeed going to be doing a toast. So I'm going to be putting out on social media, and you'll see an invite to join in on a moment of silence and to raise the glass to the memory of Jérôme Dupont, who did so much for cider and Calvados worldwide, and to really ignite his brand there with the family for a cidery that was essentially bought by his great-great-grandfather making Calvados and selling it. It's an incredible story. I hope you get to listen to the full episode with Jérôme that I recorded last September 2017. So if you could now, you want to do a couple marks in your calendar coming up. You could look on September 21st when Maggie's Reserve is being released in Michigan. And then September 25th, it will be in the morning for all the folks in the continental U.S. Because we'll be in France. But if you're on the East Coast, it's probably going to be around 10:30 in the morning in the East Coast in the U.S. to raise a glass. But truthfully, anytime during the day on the 25th, I want to really encourage you to just take a moment to mark time with the memory of people. It's important. It's a good thing to do. And we have a perfect libation for doing that. It really gathers us together. You know, the apple keeps on rolling and rolling around the world. It is historically been in the origin story, has impacted folks far beyond the realm of what we can think. And so when we have that opportunity to raise a glass in tribute to someone who is currently with us or who is passing, I think that is time well spent. So look for that. I will be posting that on the Cider Chat Facebook page and inviting you to join us in that. Again, on September 25th, we'll be at Domaine Dupont in Normandy. And I have one more reminder to put in your calendar, and that is to sign up for the New England Cider Tour taking place on November 1st. Oh, mierda, if you do not sign up for this, you're going to regret it, especially if you are heading to Cider Days and you're going to hear everybody talking about this amazing trip that's going to Farnham, that's going to Eden, that's going to swing down through Stowe and see all the beautiful Vermont trees and New Hampshire landscape and rolling up, seeing covered bridges. And then ending the night at Fable Farm Fermentory in the big old barn, having some time to sip cider by the hearth, walk in a cider cellar in New England, and meet some fabulous makers at Fable Tin Hat, and Flag Hill. It's going to be fun, and we have a big old motor coach, and you could bring cider back with you. Think Growlerfield's Farnham. Oh my goodness. What is to... You don't want to miss it. So check that out at the Totally Cider page at ciderchat.com. Well, we're going to keep on connecting you with the world in future episodes. You know I'll be rolling them out, but I am headed to Normandy, France, and I can't be responsible for everything. So I'm counting on you to stay connected. Probably some Cider Chat Live episodes going out, some little mini chats. And then when I return in October, it'll be full back on just for you. This is Rhea Windcaller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
Yeehaw!